talk about your health. Living a primal lifestyle.
You know, we have Tom from Tampa on the phone. Hey, Tom. Good morning. It's bright and early now, huh?
Hey, Paige. Good. How you guys doing, Nico?
Doing great.
Good. Hey, your newsletter's outstanding, man. I'm telling you, man, it is outstanding. And so is the Primal Edge. I love that stuff. I'd never be without it. I mean, I've been on it now 3-4 months, man. I mean, it's just, I can't get over how good I feel.
Primal Edge is, people are raving about it. People who are trying it, they know because you can feel it.
Would not be without it.
Call now, toll free at 1-877-927-6648. Internationally at 727-445-1044. Now your hosts, Nico Haan and Paige Clarke.
Well, good morning and welcome to Living a Primal Lifestyle, where we explore a return to a more balanced, natural, wild world. And I'm Paige, and my partner.
And I'm Nico Haan, and we need this to recover our natural health as well as regain our rights and our freedoms.
And it's a beautiful day here in downtown Clearwater. We hope it's beautiful where you are. We're
79 degrees.
79. We like it. 79 and fine.
You and your rhymes. I love it. And, of course, if you'd like to get a hold of us, you can reach me at nico@tfnn.com.
And Paige at tfnn.com. And we're taking questions. We love to hear input, what you'd like to hear on the show. So you can email us or give us a call and be part of our conversation at 877-927-6648.
Yeah, I ran across this article, and today our show is really going to be focused on pain.
Yes.
And I read across this blog. I think you sent it to me, actually, the psych blog, Understanding Your Mind. And it says here that empathy is killed by popular painkiller found in over 600 different drugs. Of course, the drug we're talking about is basically Tylenol.
It really is, and is an over-the-counter drug that we're finding more and more that Tylenol is really stressful on the body in many ways. Mm-hmm. And this is very concerning because it's saying that it's interfering with neuroreceptors that impact our ability to feel empathy, almost to create zombie-like type people.
And I think if we are watching the news, we're seeing a lot of zombie-type people with all our killings and related type of events and people marching in the street, which may not be completely related to this, but I think the empathy is going in our people, and this is really disturbing. And what I find disturbing the most is that most hospitals seem to recommend Tylenol over other things.
And pediatricians and doctors, and in fact, there may be one of the reasons that we see so many children developing autism. In addition to the adjuvants and the vaccines, we've got this insult of this liver disruptor in Tylenol. Yeah. And every week, folks, almost 1/4 of Americans use this drug, Tylenol. And it's called paracetamol elsewhere. And it really does reduce people's empathy for the pain of others. That's disturbing.
Yeah, these findings suggest other people's pain doesn't seem as big of a deal to you when you've taken this. This is very disturbing, and I think we see it. I think we see it not only in that, but what compounds it more than that is the lifestyle of all these devices that we have that are constantly with us.
And not only do you not feel empathy for others, it can also impact your ability to feel positive emotions. Many of the people that are taking Tylenol may not be feeling as good about things in their life. This is something that we really need to pay attention to. This is probably the most sold over-the-counter pain reliever in the world. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of problems with this drug. I mean, for the last 20 years, I've been reading, even in the mainstream, about Tylenol being a bad painkiller. I mean, it does kill the pain, but what else does it do to your body? And that's what we're really mostly concerned about, I think.
Yeah, look at this. If you were having an argument with your spouse and you just took acetaminophen, this research suggests you might be less understanding of what you did to hurt your spouse's feelings.
Wow.
Yeah, they carried out this research on 80 college students, and half were given a dose of 1,000 milligrams of acetaminophen, and the other half took a placebo. They then read a series of stories about people who had been hurt and were asked to rate their pain. The results showed that those who had taken the acetaminophen constantly gave lower pain ratings for the people in the story. If we lose our empathy for our fellow human beings, we're in deep trouble.
Yeah, and I think as a modern society, we've been doing this more and more just as the social structure. I always like to go back to our primitive lives where we're more into a culture of just 100 people or less. And maybe we know a few other tribes and that type of thing, and we don't move around as much except with our food. And that when you're eating with people every day and you're with them every day, then you really know what these people are like, and you can have much more empathy, and you also know who to trust. So, I think, and then there's always a question of what about the other ones, like Motrin and
ibuprofen. They say the researchers are now moving on to ibuprofen to see if the findings are the same. So we need to be concerned about these not natural painkillers and what they're doing to cut off our neurocommunications. They may be cutting off the pain, but a lot of other important signals. This study, incidentally, was published in the journal Social, Cognitive, and Affective Neuroscience.
Yeah, and it's a
this
journal,
year,
I think.
2016.
Yeah, and it's from the UK. It's funny, most of these things that we're citing are from the UK or from the EU or some other country. The United States doesn't seem to do a lot of these types of research anymore, and that is disturbing in itself, I think.
Well, off of our subject a little bit, but it is really important because there's a high tide in between cholesterol and pain. People who have low cholesterol, tend to have pain symptoms and so forth because they don't have the amount to recover. But
Right.
I posted it yesterday on Facebook. Again, more damning evidence to the fact that cholesterol is not the cause of heart disease, and it's in so much so that the country of Britain has gone to their health administration and said redo all these guidelines. So you mentioned Britain. Here we've got another
Step
report,
ahead.
so Google that if you'd like to. It says that your bad cholesterol may help you live longer, that there's been no correlation between bad cholesterol. In fact, if you're over 60, you live longer the higher your cholesterol.
No doubt about it.
We've
Yeah.
been sharing this for years,
For a long
and
time,
we're
yeah.
just glad the rest of the world's catching up with us.
Yeah. The other thing is those who took Tylenol showed a reduction in empathy. They weren't as concerned about rejecting the person's hurt feelings, so that's kind of like a double empathy. They first of all don't show that reaction to them, and that's
I think
where
of that
empathy-
Pink Floyd song, "Comfortably Numb."
Yeah.
And
they were
we don't-
way
we
ahead
don't-
of their times, I guess.
Yeah, we really don't want to have these kind of feelings. But, there are other ways to relieve pain. And I know that maybe when we do our next segment, we could go over some of these other ways that might be helpful to you. And I'd also like to go over the article I sent you regarding the emotional ties to pain.
that's
Is
really-
the physical pain that you're feeling actually rooted in your emotions? And quantum science and natural health has been saying that also for a long time.
Yeah, and then we can tie that back to our activities and the type of things we're eating, because that also is established through emotional ties.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think that's
tying the food in, yes.
Yeah, and this article and many of these things are going to be in my next newsletter. Stuff we talked about, water and things. So my next newsletter is really loaded with, the topics that we've been discussing. So you can kind of look a little bit further and dig out the information for yourself, so you can really make your own judgments on this. It's so important.
And it's important, folks, because our newsletter, we spend hours researching things so that you don't have to, and put them in a great readable format with the links directly for you. So
Yeah.
make sure you subscribe to our newsletter.
And please subscribe to our monthly Primal Edge, too. If you get it every month, it's only $89 a month, and you have it at your door every month, and you're sure that you're going to have those 30 doses of the Primal Edge with that great soil that's in there.
And have an edge on greater health. So we'll be right back after we take a short break.
And number here is 877-927-6648. Welcome back, folks. Today our subject is pain, and we have some sources of pain in our body that really directly link to specific emotional things that are going on in our mind
Well, quite
that are
frank-
tied to our body.
Yeah, I mean, Nico, almost every illness has an emotional component, emotional, spiritual component.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we're working backwards. We should really start to focus on looking at the emotions and getting peace
And then
and releasing
Yeah.
emotions that can get stuck. And maybe we wouldn't have not just pain manifestations, but other sicknesses and disease. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, and then the Tylenol thing that we discussed in the last segment ties to this, because now I'm wondering if that Tylenol doesn't really block the pain itself, but goes to the emotions tied to the pain.
All drugs block enzyme actions and receptor sites. So regardless of whether they're over the counter, you're stopping your body's natural function, so we're stopping your natural ability to feel.
Pain is one of the most common feelings in our body. Pain has three manifestations that are energy, perception, and physical manifestations.
I thought that was an interesting thing. They said 3 manifestations. They only gave us 2. Oh, energy perception and physical manifestation.
And physical. There are 3. This shows us that although we are grown-ups, yet we have to learn many things and more life lessons in order to learn how to avoid pain. Once the lesson is firmly incorporated in our lives, understood, and learned, it's a way that this may be transferred to other people and the pain simply disappears.
Well, your body always shows you exactly what the problem is. The only thing is you need to learn to decode it. So let's go through decoding some of your symptoms as it relates to pain.
Okay.
So when we find that people are having pain in their muscles, this is a sign of challenging ability to move in our lives. It's challenging to move. You're kind of stuck. How flexible are you being with your experience? It could be at home, it could be at work, it could be with your children.
So there's other words, there's negative things that are happening to you or certain activities that you emotionally do not like.
Right.
And that transfers over to not only some aspects in your body, but tied to where this is going on.
Sure.
So if you're having a beef with your wife on a constant basis, you're not getting along, or you're going through divorce, still living together, that type of thing, that's no good. If you're in an argument with your boss, or you have somebody that's picking on you at work, these are emotional ties that can set pain into different parts of your body. Really, really cool. And this particular is pain in muscles.
Right.
So this could be anywhere in your body.
It could be anywhere, just meaning you're having a hard time moving in life. So the pain in the head kind of relates to an inability to make a decision, limited decision making. And why do you have limited decisions? This is a lot of people who have migraines just don't want to focus on making a decision. They've limited time to relax. So if you're having migraines or headaches, you might want to look at, are you overwhelmed with decision making at this point?
Right. That makes sense.
And we're going to go through these because this is a different way to perceive,
Yeah, it's completely
these.
different than I thought about pain. I always think about pain being more physical, tied to my jiu-jitsu, and I've got pain later because the guy tried to armbar me or choke me or something, or maybe I just overdid it. And there's certainly that there, because if you haven't walked for a while and you go walking for a few hours, then you're going to have certain pains in your muscles. But are they also tied to that you didn't like it?
Well, that's exactly right. And we'll also go through, probably the next segment, we'll go through a little bit about which each emotion, we'll pick maybe 10 emotions, and we'll talk about what organ gland, might be dysfunctioning.
Yeah, I know you're the expert on that. That's great.
Well, so pain in the neck, what is that telling us? When we're having reoccurring pain in our neck.
It says here the implication that you may be having trouble with forgiveness of others. Here's that empathy again, or even yourself. If you're
feeling emotional things, your self-forgiveness, your self-love.
Yeah, so if you're feeling neck pain, consider the things that you love about yourself and others, and consciously work towards forgiveness, and that can, of course, here comes prayer, kind of a natural thing that our ancestors always did, a lot of times together, but a lot of times alone, too.
And I think that's a good point.
I always think of the Indian woman going off by herself to give birth, maybe with a friend, and tied to specific types of pain, going off alone doing that and having somebody there beside you that's gone through it perhaps with you before, and the pain is less because of those associations. I know I've felt those things myself.
Well, prayer and asking for forgiveness, but also forgiving yourself are huge in terms of stopping stagnation in the body. We know that for
and my dad always had a saying that he had a question, actually, because he wanted to pose it at the question so you could kind of go through it. He always asked, what's the difference between prayer and thinking? And he always related there is no difference because you're always thinking, so you're always praying in a sense, so watch what you think.
That's a great way to say it. I always say that prayer is asking, meditation is listening.
Yeah.
So listening.
I like
so let's
that.
get back to it.
Okay, pain in the gums.
Oh yeah, pain in the gums. Okay, that says it's related to decisions you do not take or that you do not stand.
So this is you've made a decision and you're not clear about it, and maybe you're chomping at the bit, kind of.
So you're probably maybe clenching your teeth, would cause irritation in the gums. How about pain in the shoulder? This could relate to you're carrying a real emotional burden. So carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders.
This is where the saying comes from, shouldering a problem. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, so you want to focus on solving proactive problem solving and distributing some of that burden to other people in your life, perhaps not carrying it all, not taking the weight of the world on your shoulders.
Okay, the famous stomach pain, something that I had as a child, and it occurs when something is not being digested.
You're not digesting something well.
Right. I always
literally.
I always thought, well, I'm having a test coming up in school, and that's what my parents says. Well, you're nervous and things like that. Later on, I found out, of course, it's the grains that I was eating.
And also the feeling of not being respected causes a sensation in the stomach, and I'll get back to that a little later.
Yeah.
Pain in the upper back indicates that you lack emotional support. So feeling, and think about the upper back, that's also in the thoracic cavity, it's wrapping around here, heart, not feeling loved, so that's a good part.
So if you're single, it might be time to meet somebody, it says.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Pain in the lower back. This means you're thinking too much about money or you're lacking the emotional support. It may be a good time to ask
Concerned
for
about
a
finances.
raise. Yeah,
Not feeling supported.
Yeah.
And pain in your sacrum and tailbone is that you may be sitting on an issue that needs to be addressed. Get to the bottom of it and you'll see resolution. So achy tailbone means
This
there's
actually
something.
does make sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sacrum's the sacral point.
So pain in the elbow has a lot to do with resistance to a change in life. If your arms are stiff, it means that you are too steep to things that you report. That you are too steep to
I don't
things
understand what he means by that.
Yeah. It is perhaps time to dare to move things or at least let it go. So in other words, you're contemplating something, but you're not really doing anything about it.
Right.
That's my interpretation of that. So
pain in the arms is if you're carrying something or someone as an emotional burden, it may be time to ask, why do you keep carrying it, carrying too much? And pain in the hands the hand symbolizes our connection to others, maybe, and maybe this is a sign that you're not connecting with others. And so if you're feeling pain in your hands, you may not stretch to reach out to others. So try to make new friends and work on that.
So pain in the hips, if you're afraid of moving, this may manifest as pain in the hips.
Afraid to move forward. What do our hips do? They take us forward,
That's right. Could be a sign that you're too resistant to change, and moves. May also show a caution towards making decisions.
Again, fear to move forward.
If you're thinking on big ideas, it's time to make that decision. Yeah, it's always good to, if you have a plan of some kind, take that first step. That'll appear as a second step, so you can go on.
Hip
if you don't
flexors,
take
be flexible.
that, that's so cool.
So we have to take a little flex break here, so we'll be right back. Living a Primal Lifestyle.
877-927-6648.
And welcome back. How might emotions be causing you pain? Not just, in the body, but in your heart, your soul.
Yeah, and I like the certain things that you said about pain in the hips moving you forward, and this really makes a lot of sense to me. I read the article at first, and he got kind of funny wordage in here, but all these little things make sense. Pain in the joints generally, our pain in the joints are flexible, being open to new ways of thinking, life lessons, life experiences, that type of thing. And if you're not, then of course you have the pain in the joints.
So the knee pain, which can mean I or us, it means we, symbolizes our relationship to another subject, balancing aggression. We also know that anytime there's issues going in the knee, we're going to look at our kidney. Okay, so knees associate with kidney, the water, balance, and life.
So dental pain is here.
And dental pain expresses that you do not like your situation. Maybe that's where we tied in with that gum of clenching your teeth, that constant rehashing of this affects your emotions every day in life. So, and then pain in the ankles means that you do not grant yourself the right to pleasure. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, try to spice up your love life a little bit if you have that. That's definitely tied to emotions. Pain causing fatigue, which means boredom, resistance. You're denying what it takes to move forward.
Right.
You have to open yourself a little with that little voice you have inside you.
And I do think that this is true. Foot pain. Many times if you're feeling depressed, well, there's just this overall exhaustion, depression. And if you take a look, even on the telestrator, we've got the picture of of emotions and how it impacts the thermo image of the body. Depression is a very cold body, poor circulation.
Right.
The feet get achy. I think that's something to be aware of. So the cellular structure of the body is constantly renewing, and during this process, it's purging itself of negative energies. The immune system and all of our systems of the body are found weakened from emotional stress. So I was going to let you quiz me on emotions a little bit.
You always said that everything ties back to our organs, which makes sense because this is what does all the cleaning and the sanitizing and removes things from our body and gives us our taste, which gives us our perceived nutrition, that type of thing. So, what you're really good at is taking an organ, saying, look at the shape of it, and now we can determine what type of food is good for that.
Well, I like that doctrine of signatures, trying to figure out by looking at food if there wasn't some greater force, of course, I believe, that was trying to give us some clues. But, for example, that's a great little image there. Let's talk about the liver.
Image on the telestrator, yeah.
So we can talk a little bit about when we look we can look at an organ gland system, say like the gallbladder.
Okay.
And if someone comes in to me and is talking about, I feel frustrated about this, frustrated this, well, I'm going to ask them, I'm going to be interested in seeing if there's some dysfunction in the gallbladder. Because the gallbladder is the organ or gland that's most impacted by that feeling frustrated. And the gallbladder is partners with which organ? The liver. Okay?
Yeah.
So gallbladder and liver function is...
it's tied to digestion and tied to detoxification.
It sure is, but there's no emotion. In Chinese medicine, the gallbladder and liver function creates the angry man. So the frustrated and angry feelings. I've had clients come in and they just go on and on about something that's been frustrating. You feel the anger. And so what do you think we're going to want to do? We're going to take some burden off of that liver. We're going to send some tonifying energy. We're going to help them get rid of that stress.
Okay, so what about, we're talking about things like the lungs.
Okay, well, the lungs are the spot that we hold our grief.
Okay.
And I always like to use as an example, think about when Superman Christopher Reeves died in his accident. It wasn't but a few months later that his adoring wife passed away from lung cancer, never smoked. So she held that emotion. I get goosebumps when I think about that, but she held that emotion of sincere grief. And that's why it's very important to allow yourself to grieve. I've had clients that have lost their dogs or unfortunately lost family members, and I just seek them out. I have I use flower essences and homeopathic remedies that are energetic signatures that help the body deal with grief.
Yeah, and it brings to mind at funerals, and when somebody passes, we have a gathering, and different cultures have different ways of dealing with that. Some really happy, some real sad. But this is our way of reconnecting with those emotions, so we can wash these emotions away, so our organs don't feel the impact.
So they're not impacted by that negative frequency.
Right.
So what do you think the bladder is?
Okay.
What do you think?
Well, I don't know. You tell
Irritated.
Me. Yeah.
Being pissed off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so these kind of emotions can really irritate it. The stomach is also an irritated, an organ of being not sitting well with you, not sitting well in your stomach. So nervousness, that kind of a thing. The heart is greatly impacted by shock or overwhelm. So you'll see these are the organ and glands that get impacted by these kinds of emotions.
Now, there's another thing here that really ties the sinuses and the eyes and the hearing and the hair in kind of the same way. Sinuses, if they cause you any trouble, maybe somebody close to you in your life irritates you a lot, and you might have that feeling that they're attacking you. Interesting, because you feel that plugged up kind of feeling. And
sinus trouble would be dysfunction in the digestive, because if you can't digest, I think it's going to show up in your respiratory, in the system. You're not digesting your food, you get stuffy and irritated is the stomach.
Yeah.
And
And here eye problems point out that something about you in your past or your future that you don't wish anybody to see.
Something you don't want to see or don't want anyone else to see. So you may be angry, you may, but there's also a big tie-in with the eyes and the liver.
Right, and then there's hearing, maybe problems that you don't wish to hear. Hair is very powerful, it senses.
And ears are kidney.
Oh.
No, so you're not a kidney
Same
dysfunction.
type of shape in the sense, isn't it? A little bit. So I'm going to put all these things in the newsletter, which is really cool. They go over the hands and over the back, the lungs, the chest, Lungs are the ability of giving and taking things in life. If you have any lung problems, maybe you are afraid to take these things you need, and maybe you feel that you don't have the right to live your life like you want to.
Yeah, feeling
Be
guilty.
Yeah.
And that's also the twins for the sign of, Gemini. And so it's the lungs and the breasts are actually Cancer. So see the parallel?
Yeah, I do. And your feet are related to understanding ourselves and the life around you, your past, present, and future, because your feet is what propels you through life. Too much weight represents your need for protection, and I've always thought that too. I noticed that when people go through a traumatic...
Stuffing emotions.
Yeah, stuffing emotions.
Stuffing yourself, stuffing those emotions in your cellular memory, holding on to excess weight, not being ready to release these feelings. Emotional release therapy is something that you can learn to do yourself and is probably more powerful than anything that we can do.
Yeah.
And practitioners that do things like I do, or QRA, if you can find one in your area, really many times will work on the emotional release before we start recommending foods and supplements for a physical ailment, because these are often resolved by making good food choices and by helping to get to the root of why you're experiencing something.
Yeah, so in the next segment, we're going to go over some of the natural things you can do, both as over-the-counter stuff and both as maybe a supplement of some kind. So please stick around for that.
Because there's ways to deal with your pain, and let's look at ways that we can do it by
and one thing
natural
we found
ways.
out with our comments from the Primal Edge, people who are taking it, it definitely reduces your pain, no doubt about it. So you can pick that up at the TFNN site. We'll be right back. Welcome to our pain show, folks. And now we want to discuss some natural things that we can do. Of course, we know food is right on top of this.
There's lots of things in the spice cabinet that help with pain.
That's for sure. And some of these products have even been encapsulated in some of the modern creams and things like that. And this first one is really a component of chili pepper.
Correct. Capsaicin. Capsaicin is a very effective, and it reduces pain from arthritis, things like shingles or neuropathy. And you can apply it in an ointment. There's many of them on the market.
Definitely.
And you can also use a pepper tincture and take it internally. I mean, Dr. Schultz use a lot of cayenne pepper in their formulas to help absorption and expand the capillaries.
Yeah, once absorbed, this the effect can really last for a long time, 2 or 3 weeks, 2 to 5 weeks in some cases. So this does work. There's another thing called Infrathera.
That's a product brand by New Chapter. It's Zyflamed. It's a mix of capsaicin, of turmeric, ginger.
Basil,
so these are all herbs that show proof that they're effective. And so you're going to find really good quality products out there that are using herbs and flowers and so forth that really help to alleviate pain. So seek those out before you use one of these over-the-counter painkillers that we're now learning can be very bad for us.
The next one is the
Arnica.
Arnica,
Arnica is a wonderful flower that helps to decrease bruising, too. And you can buy it in homeopathic strengths. You can buy gels and suspensions of it. And it's an adjunct to ice, herbs, or conventional pain meds. Right after an injury, it helps the best.
And here's one made from a red seaweed supplement, rich in calcium and magnesium, and made by Swanson. It's called Aquaman. And Aquaman, in a study with 70 volunteers in the National Journal, they say it reduces arthritic pain by 20% in a month.
Well,
So
again,
something
rich in minerals, calcium and magnesium are needed to keep ourselves from feeling pain. We've got to have our electrolytes. And SAMe is a reduction that happens through our breaking down of processes, and SAMe reduces arthritis aches in this article, but it does so much more. It's really implicated in depression. What did we find out? Pain, emotions affect things. So SAMe is made from a naturally occurring amino acid, and you can buy it in capsules. We make it in our body, but you can supplement it, and many people find that this...
After a couple of months, it really does
It's a methyl donor, too. I think you all know I've talked to you about the importance of methyl donor. HCl betaine is a methyl donor, which helps us break things down so that we get a better result.
Right. And one of the great things, fish oil, which is the omega-3s, even cod liver oil, will relieve joint pain from arthritis and autoimmune disorders. So You know, we've been talking about omega-3 for eons, and we're really finding out that it is a supplement that everyone needs to take, in a sense, you know, in some
People
form
ask
or
what's
another.
the proper dose, you know,
Yeah.
a minimum 1,000 milligrams, really probably much more if you can.
Yeah.
And particularly if you have pain, you want to up the dose.
Yeah, and you can triple that dose in the beginning and
Sure.
go back down.
Yeah,
as
there's
you
no
need it.
shortage. MSM is methylsulfonal methane, which is derived from sulfur. Remember, sulfur is an important mineral that we're not getting because our soil is depleted. Hence, we realize it's important to get these minerals in the right combination. And it may prevent joint and cartilage degeneration, which we see is one of the reasons so many people have pain.
Yeah.
So MSMs, increasing your sources of MSM are great.
Now, here's some other things that are really more along physical manifestations or even vocal. The counting out loud. This says if you count backwards from 100 out loud during an injection, you experience less pain. So there are things like that. And I was listening to a podcast last night from the Iceman, the Dutch guy who dunks himself, and he was describing, it's funny, the doctor who was interviewing was describing how pain works in the receptors and what blocks it. And he was talking about how he discovered that by dunking himself into the cold water, and he noticed that the breathing automatically started changing. And that breathing is what kept him happy. And he felt so good. So he tied his breathing and came up with his whole regime of breathing techniques to get rid of pain, to oxidate your body so you're getting much more oxygen so your body feels less pain. And it was an amazing thing, and I'll put that in the next newsletter too.
And that's actually really a big part of movement with breath is what Qigong is. Qigong is an umbrella term for traditional Chinese medicine exercises or techniques that integrate body posture, mind, and breathing to improve the flow of energy, or qi. Qi is the flow of energy in our body. And we've seen huge improvements in people who have fibromyalgia or wide body pain through Qigong.
Yeah, and also through acupuncture.
Sure. Acupuncture as well.
Yeah, and even pressure points. You're getting massage. You know, these things all do work.
Or even just the sheer power of the human touch, that delivery of that microcurrent. Because we are all generators of electricity, and we're delivering energy or charge to another person.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
so I think that it's great that we look for these natural ways to alleviate our pain. And since we touched a little bit on some of these things are available in supplements, let's talk a little bit about what are some of the other best supplements that you might want to find that would really help you. Because chronic pain is a modern-day epidemic, and it affects more than nearly 2 billion people worldwide, and it costs us billions of dollars in lost productivity and medical expenses every year. And, it actually affects more individuals than even heart disease, cancer, and diabetes combined.
Yeah.
That's very sad.
Yeah. And then, of course, we often talk about the low-grade type of inflammation that gives you discomfort, maybe not pain, but it's chronic in a way that it shows up every single day and you just don't feel right. And our answer is using these herbs and different foods.
And look at this, addressing the underlying mental, emotional, chemical, and physical stressors that are causing the chronic inflammation and pain is the ultimate goal. That's a great statement.
Yeah, and
it's because there's multifactorial reasons to why you're in pain.
Yeah, and it takes time and deep introspection along with trusted holistic healthcare providers. So here's some great things that you can use, of course. The Pro-T-L.
It's proteolytic enzymes. Proteolytic enzymes are enzymes. Enzymes, remember, are the catalyst. The enzymes are what do work in our body. And enzymes are present in live sources of food. And when we take them with our food, they digest our food. When we take them in between, or proteolytic, protein digesting enzymes, we break down protein structures and strange things that shouldn't be in our body.
Well said.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and it's, of course, these enzymes are effective at reducing pain because it reduces the swelling. And
the pain and the edema. Many times we have pain because we've got undigested food that's migrated to a weaker spot in the body, and you'll feel great. And taking proteolytic enzymes are meant to be taken in between meals so they can do housekeeping. Think of it that way.
Yeah. And, of course, we talked about turmeric and ginger, baswala, the omega-3s, and the great...
probiotics, actually. Chronic pain is often a sign of the leaky gut. So, as I just said, if you have a leaky gut, your food, both of us have.
Yeah, every morning for a while.
If you have a leaky gut and your gut is not in balance, then the food particles can escape into the blood system and cause the pain. So reestablish and recolonize a healthy gut. The sulfur and looking for the magnesium and the methylating agents. We mentioned SAMe can be powerful, and I wanted to share that because I think methylation is so important. Methylating agents are a key biochemical process that that happen billions of times. Think of enzymes and methylation as breaking down things. This is how we repair our DNA. So, you can get these in lots of leafy green vegetables and organic animal products. So, I think we did cover a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, and of course, all this stuff is going to be jammed into the next newsletter links and everything like that, so you can do your own research. So pick up our newsletter. It's only $10 a month, $5 an issue for all this information. We'll be right back.
Hey, and welcome back. So some good news. We're seeing more and more communities that are returning to living a primal lifestyle, to growing food forests. And right away, we found an article about Nico's home country. The Dutch town will grow its own food, live off the grid, and handle its own waste. This was in ScienceAlert.com.
Yeah, this is kind of what I would call beyond primal, because we're taking the primal idea and using that to sustain us, but in a modern way, using our modern tech, which is the way it should be.
Which is what we should do. We want to take the best of both worlds.
I think so.
But this looks exciting. Then they're planning on this community is a new vision of a more sustainable, integrated neighborhood, but it got the idea of a community.
Yeah, we're redefining residential real estate development by creating these regenerative neighborhoods, looking at first at these greenfield pieces of farmland where we can produce more organic food, more clean water, more clean energy, and mitigate more waste. And so we can put that in the land and grow organic food.
Community agriculture is not a new plan. The Amish people have been thinking about it, but I think this is great that we're seeing more and more communities are doing this.
Yeah.
And they've got a prototype. Maybe people can see it on the telestrator. It really is beautiful homes that are growing their own food and then sharing. The neighborhoods are sharing. And look at those vertical greenhouses are just super.
Yeah. And
the other article that we were talking about was, I think, is super great news, are the new forests that are popping up. Even floating food forests are being planned in cities, New York, LA, Chicago. They're being added to vacant lots and producing crops and generating urban farming that are feeding lots of people and bringing communities together. I just get so excited when I see these pictures, and children are getting involved in growing these plants, and particularly when we see the stuff going on in Detroit, which has been so destroyed by the loss of industry.
Well, when you have a lot of homes that are completely worthless now and being let run down for the past 10 years, and now you can't do anything with them, you can see how this vision can take place if you have some people that have that vision. I know in places like Vancouver, they have a lot of permaculture going on as far as inside buildings, alongside buildings,
on rooftops,
in between buildings, on the rooftops, and not agriculture as we know it, more like gardening. So they're not making the seed crops, which are so prevalent in our diet today. They're actually making plants, which I think is more important, because eating plants is really healthy, eating seeds not so much.
I thought it was interesting too. There's some great visuals in this article, but I thought it was super to hear how in New York, where real estate's kind of prime, they went and created a barge. So it's a floating food forest. They've created a barge, and it will park in different ports, and people can come and pick their food for free.
Yeah.
And it was done through donation and a lot of this is done with donation and volunteering. It's supporting all of the food pantries around the town, and maybe they're growing some flowers here or there to make a little bit of money, but offering the food.
Very cool. And we can do this in downtowns to help the poor people and the people who are on the streets, for them too. So they can learn some skills by getting involved in that, I'm sure. Now, John Logan, who normally is in the next segment coming up, he'll be out this morning, so we'll be replaying this particular show. So if you're coming in a little bit late, we really talked about pain in the beginning, and there's a whole segment on pain tied to our emotions, tied to the way we live.
And then also some solutions that can help you with your pain that may not be damaging to you, as we exposed a lot of bad research coming out about Tylenol and some of these over-the-counter. They're not so harmless, and we need to take them with real caution. So You know, if you get a chance to check out, start Googling and learning what people are doing with the food. You know, we can feed the world one backyard at a time, one vacant lot at a time, creating beautiful food forces to feed our families and feed our people.
Yep.
So we'll have to see you next time. You all have a wonderful week.
Thanks for sticking around, folks. Really appreciate it.
See you next time on Living a Primal Lifestyle.
We'll see you next time.
You're watching Tiger TV.